a good 6 years ago. I made a video about this laptop. And now it's back. So let's revisit it. This is an IBM Thinkpad. And back then even it made me kind of search for its name a little bit, because when you would fold it up here, it would say I series there, and you're like, okay, yeah, it's an I series. But then you flip it over, and it's saying here type 1161. So I guess it's an I1161. Not sure actually, to be honest. But anyway, it's a laptop made in the 90s, and I gave that to a family who wanted to get into computers in 2012. And I can tell you guys, even in 2012, a computer like this was sorta obsolete. And now we're 2018 and they moved to an iPad. So guys, you can actually see that people who don't do a lot of stuff can survive quite long with their machines if they really stick to the stuff they want to do. Now this has done all that it pretty much has done were documents and one or two spreadsheets, and it's also had some pictures on it. It did nothing more. It never went online ever, except maybe once. And it also really never did anything intensive. It did word processing, and that's like 99% of the time. So they really sticked so long with this computer, and I was really surprised. So they gave that back to me, and now let's see how it survived. It was located where a lot of people and a lot of children are, and you can maybe see a little damage here at the top. It doesn't really come out in camera, but it looks like somebody keyed it, like these stupid people who key cars and do like looks pretty much the same here, like somebody did take I don't know, a scissor or something and went across the laptop. I don't know, some stupid kid did that maybe. I don't know, but other than that, I'm surprised. I mean, this thing is such a tank. It held up so good. And that makes me sad at the same time, because when you look at a machine like this, which was built in the 90s, and you look at a machine that is built in 2018, the quality is just such a different league. Now, yes, this I think was one of the better machines in the 90s, so it was not like crappy quality-ish. Still, when you look at laptops that are good 400, 500, 600 euros today, they still have such crappy plastic that it can bend and that cracks all the time. And now check out this. This computer is from the 90s, I suppose 1998, 1999, because it says it's made for 98 and Windows NT. And this still looks so good, even though it's taken quite a bit of beating with all these kids. And look how it held up. Now I've got here my Acer Aspire 1 next to it, and in my opinion, for a netbook, the quality is not too bad. Certainly not the best, but for a netbook, cheap to begin with, it's actually not terrible. But as you can see, I can bend the plastic here. It moves, as you can see, and also the keyboard is kind of loose, and look at this. You can't move this plastic. There's no way. This holds up pretty nice. It's very sturdy. So I really gotta give IBM this thing. They can make laptops that are quality, that are tanks and bricks, that hold up through the ages. As you know, I've got another IBM ThinkPad, which is from 2003-ish, and it's the same. There's this really basically no difference in quality. Now, there's also no difference in looks. If you would put like my other ThinkPad next to this, and you would go to a random person and they would say it's the same laptop. The design is really not beautiful. I mean, I like IBM. There's nothing wrong with them, but design-wise, it's really boring and ugly and just black. But of course, it's not meant to be like this. It's meant to be worked with. It's a workhorse machine sitting at the office, sitting at home, typing away on it, and nobody cares how it looks. And so, yeah, that's what they did pretty good. Now, since this is a laptop from the 90s, let's see what ports we got. We got a CD drive, not a DVD drive. This is only a CD drive. Then we got a PS2 keyboard or mouse, or maybe both. No, it's a mouse. Okay, keyboard, mouse port. There's the power input, a huge printer port, a modem port, a VGA port, headphone jack, microphone, a USB 1.1 probably, and another USB here. And that was pretty good for a laptop from this era, and an expansion card slot. Unfortunately though, as you saw, there's no Ethernet on this laptop. And I think it would have gone here. There's like a knockout plug. And it's showing the Ethernet symbol here. So if this had Ethernet, it would go here. And I actually used to have an expansion card that had an Ethernet port. I just need to find it. So you could stick this in and it would have Ethernet. Now if you fold it up, you're greeted with this terrible display. I'm saying terrible, even though I'm not a hater and I'm not spoiled by modern displays. There were displays in this era that aren't that terrible. This is like mid-90s technology in terms of the screen. It's an 800 by 600 display. Now let's see how it looks. Alright. Now the battery is of course flat dead. It like dies after a minute, but that's to be expected, of course. Let's power it on. Despite being almost as old as me, of course, there's nothing wrong with it. This thing works perfectly. Everything works. I see, though, that the display is sort of giving up in this era, or it starts to give up. I know that these color matrix displays, I think they're called, are not really known to work for very long, because back then LCD technology was like in, you know, the first, the LCD technology was like very new, and so these guys are of course not so advanced like modern screens. You know, LCDs have come a long way. If you look at that screen here, and you look at, like, for example, this IMAX screen, and then you look at a 4K screen, it's incredible. So, Windows XP is booting. Yeah. Even in 2012, Windows 98 and NT were, of course, horribly out of date. So, I went with XP for them. And that worked out pretty good. Worked out pretty nice. And I put a different hard drive in it. I also remember this. This came with, I think, a 4 gig hard drive, which was, you know, standard at the time, but it was slow and not enough space. So I put in a 40 gig, 7200 RPM hard drive. And as you can see, the boot time was not too bad. This is still rocking the original install that I made in the last video 6 years ago. And yeah, as you can see, guys, there you go. It's booted up and ready to be used. Now this is my cat, if you're asking. I know I cannot show it to you because it's at a different house. But this is my cat in 2013. And this cat is coming up at 19 years. So, yeah, it was in better shape back then. I can put in a photo if you want. So, now back to computers. we got these adjusters that you can adjust the brightness with. Now it's all the way up, now it's all the way down. Really makes almost no difference, to be honest. And you have this color saturation, which you can either go with this, which is just looking awful, or you can go with this. And I like to go with this because this is like almost nice to look at. I'm saying almost because it's still meh, but you know, that's what you get from such an old 800 by 600 display. Okay, now we got here Windows XP, of course, and I want to show you this old version of Firefox. Now, as I said, this never went online, so this still has the Firefox that I installed in 2012. If you're not up to speed with Firefox, we are at version 60.0.1, if I'm not wrong. That's the very latest version. Let's see what the latest version was in 2012. (18.0.2). Even the old Firefox logo here, there have been 2 refreshes in the meantime. Incredible what a couple of years do. So there is the Firefox. Just wanted to show you that real quick. Never really was used at all. Same with the Internet Explorer or Opera. Opera was, even back then, an older version. I installed that for maybe getting the last bit of speed out of this machine. This was an older version, not sure. Yeah, it opened up about Opera. Okay, that's what I wanted. 12.14. That is, of course, very out of date today. But as I said, this never went online, so it's not a problem. Good. Now, let's check out the specifications. Of course, Windows XP. And XP can be installed on a lot of hardware. Its minimum requirements are 64 megabytes of RAM. This machine has 192, as I will show you later, and an Intel Celeron 500 MHz Coppermine. And I think this Coppermine was the same processor family as my Compact Desk Pro, which has a Pentium 3 Coppermine, if I'm not completely wrong. Pretty sure it is. And that would also make sense because it was sort of the same era. This is definitely not a powerhouse of a CPU. It was actually not a powerhouse back in the day, so yeah, there you go. And 192 megabytes of RAM, which, you know, was quite a lot in 1998. I think this has been upgraded because back then you had like 64-ish, and so yeah. But as you can see, there's one thing that kind of gives away its age, and that is the graphics card. We got 4 megs of RAM with a Silicon Motion Linux EM Plus, whatever that is. And 4 megs was sort of, you know, the regular GPU memory size. I remember the very first iMac G3 has a 4 megabyte chip, 4 megabyte GPU, so would make sense from the same age. Also processor wise. So here we go, 500 megahertz Celeron from the 90s, chugging along pretty good. Now, of course, that comes with a lot of drawbacks. First of all, the multitasking ability is very limited. You can pretty much only run one program at a time productively, and this is what's booting up right now. LibreOffice 3.6. That's what they used all the time. I remember when I was visiting them, there was a document open most of the time here with LibreOffice, and that brings back so many memories. I used to use this LibreOffice version in school because at the time where I made the last video, I was in school and I was like getting the latest LibreOffice. And it brings up so many memories back. Also a memory where when you would enter here a name for a for a font, it would crash. So yeah, this was what it was doing most of the time. And for stuff like this, you don't need a 4K display with a quad-core CPU and 8 gigabytes of RAM. No, even an old Celeron can do it with 192 megabytes of RAM and Windows XP. So that's what it was doing, you know. And now they moved to an iPad because they also want to get into internet and stuff. And internet, guys, is not really a nice experience on this old machine anymore. So yeah, but that's what it was doing most of the time. Now I've cleaned off the personal stuff, of course, so there is really not a lot left on it anymore. There's like an old operating system, so-called operating system, that me and David developed back in the days in Visual Studio. Oh, it's called BCA. You can't really see anything. All right, this is his version, by the way. He made it quite nice. He even made a calculator, which back then was like, wow. So this is David's version of BACA or BCA, however you call it. Alright, so I even put that on here just for the lols. You can see BACA about. There you can see Macintosh Mini 12 and SDK. That's us. So as you can see, yeah, back in the days. Also brings back a lot of memories. Let's see. I got some pictures here. Some more pictures of the cat. Let's see when that was taken. The 1st of January 2013. Okay. Yeah, so it was recorded with my iPhone 4, I guess. Yes, there you go, iPhone 4 back then. Oh, yes. Good times, good times. Yep. So, okay, this is the old IBM Thinkpad. Now, you were probably shouting at the screen, why didn't you put a Linux on it? It would have been way faster. Yes, guys, yes, I know, but in 2012, I was a Linux noob. I mean, I even knew stuff about Linux. I installed Ubuntu back in the days. Like the first Linux I ever installed was Ubuntu 11. However, I really wasn't sure how to use it, and so I just went with Windows because I knew what was going on. And this is like an old program from A1, our internet company. It's old, certainly is. It's still working, and maybe we'll do a project with it. I kind of want to also make this solid state, like replace the hard drive with a SD card, so like it boots silently, and then run Windows 98 on it, because that was supposed for it, and you know, I got enough XP machines, but this hard drive is going to be saved. So guys, here we go. This is the IBM ThinkPad, and I hope you like it. I certainly do. And so, without further ado, what the hell? Okay. Anyway, see you later, guys. This sound is kind of disturbing. That's what I was waiting for. Good.